Hi there, engineering students. Andy here. Now we've gone through a whole bunch of recordings of making this birdhouse. What I'd like to show you now is how to break it. There's a lot of times when you'll design something, in fact you should be designing things and modifying and modifying. It's a challenge sometimes in a complicated software package like SolidWorks where there's multiple parts that have to relate to each other and all kinds of geometry. It's a challenge when you want to change things. And I'm going to show you some of the common problems that you'll get yourself into in changing things and hopefully give you some path forward so it isn't a total nightmare. So let's get started. So here's the main assembly of our birdhouse. Now, what I did up to this point is I went in and I thought, you know, this birdhouse, it's kind of big and I want to make it more skinny and tubular and tall. So I went and I just simply opened the ugly birdhouse as a part and I made some changes to it. And all I did was I changed the dimension from this face to this face, and I changed the width of it. It went from 120 millimeters to 100 millimeters. So not a huge change. But the result when I rebuilt the assembly is a couple of things have happened. One is, where'd this hole come from? Like, what? I guess that belongs there. All right. So that makes sense. It just didn't look like it was the right spot. So, okay, that didn't break. There's no errors showing because these are nice and clean, but there's this tab sticking up like a chimney out of my roof. Well, that's a problem. So I need to go back into my birdhouse part and I need to open that part again. And you've seen how to do this before. And you can see that, yeah, I do actually have this silly tab sticking up here. Now, if you look through all of the features that you've put in here, there's where I did the dowels, holes. There's where I cut something. I cut that. Oh, interesting. All this was done after I folded. Oh, I remember. I did this to cut away the initial part that was there. So if I open up this, I'll see that my sketch is there. That didn't really change at all with when I modified the part. I don't think that's my problem though. Nothing's showing up as an error. But now I look at this one and, oh, I see. So this sketch didn't adapt when I changed the model size. So that's simple. I can just go in and edit the sketch. And I will just draw that line down, pull that one up, close. And this looks good. And so now if I now save this, so I resave the ugly birdhouse and then I click close. Now it's going to ask me if I would like to rebuild the assembly. Yes, I would. Yeah, and so now the assembly looks fine. So that's good. Now what if I go back into that ugly birdhouse and I think, well, you know, I don't really like all of these holes that are in it. I'd like to move them around, make them smaller, make them bigger, whatever. So I'm going to find out where do those holes come from. And that doesn't tell me anything. It says that they're in the convert from a solid. So I can actually roll this back before I did a sheet metal. And now I can see this is a solid. I made it a thin shell. Ah, yes, that was my original Boss extrude. Did I extrude that with holes? Let's see. guess I didn't. So that wasn't anything I want to change. Where did I make those holes? Was it that cut? And basically you need to go through each of the features that you've put on. Ah, there's the cut. And find out where you created that feature. Maybe I'll make these 15 millimeters. And actually, I don't really want this, it's patterned, so I'm just going to edit the pattern. And I think what I'd like to do is, I'm going to skip one of the instances. I'm going to skip that one. Oh, skip that one. Come on, skip that one. There we go. And so now, when I see that has been skipped, and I can rebuild it. Now I'm missing that one hole, and that should be good. Once again, save the part, close it, and go back to the assembly. Yep, nothing much has changed. The birdhouse still looks good. I've changed. I've taken away those holes. I'm going to go into the base plate now. I think I'd like to modify the base plate a little bit. I'm not happy with how thick it is. So if I can edit this, I'd like this ledge to be maybe a bit bigger. Or maybe a bit smaller. Maybe smaller, because I'm wasting a lot of material there with that. So if I look at this, this was my boss extrude here. And you see that I extruded 5 millimeters out. Let's make that not 5, but just 2. There. And now, by changing that, I've got all these alerts showing up, and a fillet that isn't there, and this is a mess. That tiny little change, and it's a mess. Why did that happen? And you'll get into this a lot. Keep your positive attitude, and try and figure out where did the error come from. Now I know that I just changed that sketch, and if I highlight that sketch, I can see that there is something weird about it. So I'm just going to edit the sketch and see, there's what it is. So this was 2, and I made this different. This is 5, but I need to make that 2. There. Now let's see what happens. That's better. Okay. So this looks good. There's no errors in this part. I can save that. And I'll close and go back to the assembly. And now that didn't hurt the assembly at all. And that's good. So it depends on what changes you make, what problems you'll get into. I'm going to open up that base plate again. It seems like I'm wasting a lot of material on this bottom. So I'm going to edit this. I don't want it to be 12 millimeters down. I just want to make it 1 millimeter down. Very thin little edge. Okay, it didn't mind that. And likewise, I think that I'd like to maybe shave off some material here. So if I look at this cut, and I edit that, that's 15. Gosh, seems like a lot. Why don't I make that 5? Oops, over here. I can edit that and make that 5. Okay, that's a much thinner part. You can see that the hole that I was going to thread through here has gone right through, but that shouldn't really cause me too much worry. I'll save that. And yes, I'll rebuild my assembly, and everything is still looking just fine. So there are changes like that you can make, and because the way the assembly was built, we started out with a complicated part, and the rest of the parts follow from there. So you can make an awful lot of dimensional changes, but notice one thing that I haven't done, and that is I haven't actually made a change which really does anything other than a slight morphing of the shape and size. Now I could go back and say, you know, I really didn't like the original shape of my ugly birdhouse profile. I'm going to go back and edit it again. I'm going to go into this sketch. I'm going to edit this, and you know, I don't like the fact that these lines are here. I'm going to take it right down like so. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'm going to make it completely square. So I'm going to use extend entities here, extend that. Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm going to extend that. And then I'll use trim entities to trim those bits and trim those bits. There, so I've made a nice rectangular birdhouse, 100 by 75. Haven't changed anything except I've cut those sides. And so in this, whoa, that change made a big difference. In fact, I eliminated a bunch of fillets, which resulted in all of these things being wrong. So the difference here was that I changed the overall kind of topology of the part. I took away a feature that was evident in one of the earlier drawings. And when you do that, then you start to create problems. If I don't fix this and I try to save it, it will give me an error because there's rebuild errors, but I'll say, okay, I'm just going to blunder along through. And if I close and I try to rebuild my assembly, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of these red X's in my assembly. The roof is trying to fit on, but it can't because there's features that aren't present. The base is trying to fit on, but it can't because there's features that aren't present. It's a mess. And it all comes back to having changed the geometry in such a way that I eliminated a key feature, which in this case were these angled edges on the back side. So keep that in mind, that you can make lots of changes as long as the general topology, the features are all there. So you can change dimensions and spacings and that sort of thing quite easily. But if you make more fundamental changes, then there will be a rebuild problem. So you've got to really peel back to the beginning and figure out where those errors are and fix them. So that's enough for now. I hope that helps. You're going to see a lot of these errors. You always do. But be patient and go back to the first place the error occurred. Go back to where you previously didn't have errors. Maybe make a policy of saving intermediate design models before you move on to do more sophisticated things. So good luck. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again.